The bridge of the Zephyrian flagship. Death's thunder hummed with activity as hundreds of screens displayed tactical information. Admiral Kethvar stood before the main view screen, his forearms crossed behind his back as he watched his massive fleet spread across space like a deadly net. 847 ships of war surrounded the small human vessel that had dared to enter Zephyrian space. "Admiral, the target is maintaining position," reported Commander Thexra from her station. No attempt to flee or call for backup. Kethavar's scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his people. The humans had made a serious mistake. For 3 cycles, the Zephyrian Empire had heard whispers about this new species that called themselves humans. Some spoke of them with fear, others with curiosity. But Kethavar had seen their ships in the intelligence reports. Small, simple vessels with basic technology. Nothing that could threaten the might of the Zephyrian armada. "Open communications," he ordered. "Let me speak to these foolish creatures." The view screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the human ship, it now displayed the interior of what looked like a research laboratory. A human female with short brown hair sat in a chair looking directly at him. She appeared calm, almost bored. This was not the reaction Kethavar expected from someone facing nearly 1,000 warships. "I am Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy," he announced in his most threatening voice. "You have entered our territorial space without permission. Surrender immediately or face destruction." The human tilted her head slightly. "Hello, Admiral. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the research vessel Endurance. I think there might be some misunderstanding here. We're just conducting scientific research on stellar formations in this region. Our charts didn't show this area as claimed territory." Kethavar's eyes narrowed. The human's casual tone annoyed him. Where was the fear? Where was the begging for mercy? "Your charts are wrong, human. This system belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your vessel for inspection." Captain Chen looked confused. She turned to someone off-screen and said something in the human language before turning back. "Admiral, I'm sorry, but we can't do that. We have important research data aboard, and our mission requires us to return to human space. Perhaps we could arrange safe passage. We're willing to compensate for any inconvenience." The Admiral's second-in-command, Commander Thexra, leaned forward. "Admiral, energy readings from the human ship are unusual. The power signature doesn't match our database of human technology." Kethavar waved her concerns away. "It matters little. 1 ship against 800. Even if they have improved their technology, the odds speak for themselves." He turned back to the screen. "Captain Chen, you seem to misunderstand your situation. You are outnumbered nearly 1,000 to 1. Your single ship cannot hope to escape our fleet." Captain Chen's expression grew more serious. She was quiet for a moment as if listening to something. Then she sighed deeply, the sound carrying clearly over the communication link. "Admiral, I really hoped we wouldn't need to do this. Are you absolutely certain you won't allow us safe passage?" "Surrender or be destroyed," Kethavar repeated. "Those are your only options." The human captain closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with a look of resignation. "Very well. Please understand, Admiral, that what happens next is entirely your choice. We gave you every opportunity to avoid this situation." Before Kethavar could respond, the communication ended. The view screen returned to showing the exterior view of the human ship. It looked exactly as it had before, a simple white vessel no larger than a Zephyrian cruiser. The Admiral couldn't understand why the human captain had seemed so confident. "Sir, the human ship is powering up something," reported Lieutenant Vextar from the sensor station. "Energy readings are climbing rapidly." "Prepare to fire," Kethavar ordered. "All ships target the human vessel. Fire on my command." "Admiral," Commander Thexra said urgently. "The energy pattern from their ship, it doesn't match anything we've ever seen. The power levels are impossible for a vessel that size." Kethavar looked at his second-in-command with irritation. "Impossible or not, it's still just 1 ship. Even if they have some new weapon, they cannot fight us all." He activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kethavar. You are witnessing something that will be remembered in Zephyrian history. Today we face the humans for the first time in battle. Though they send only 1 ship against our mighty armada, we will show them the true power of the Zephyrian Empire." Across the fleet, thousands of Zephyrian warriors prepared for battle. Gun ports opened, missile tubes loaded, and energy weapons charged. The Admiral felt a surge of pride as he looked at the tactical display. His fleet was the largest ever assembled, veterans of a dozen campaigns against lesser species. The humans had made a fatal error in judgment. "Sir, receiving a transmission from the human ship," reported the communications officer. "It's addressed to the entire fleet." "Put it through," Kethvar said. "Let all our ships hear what these humans have to say before we crush them." Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge of every ship in the fleet. Her tone was formal now, all traces of casual friendliness gone. "Attention Zephyrian fleet. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Endurance. You have been given multiple opportunities to allow peaceful passage. You have chosen to threaten a human ship conducting legitimate scientific research. In accordance with Human Defense Protocol 7, this vessel is now authorized to defend itself by any means necessary." Kethvar laughed, the sound echoing across his bridge. Several other officers joined in. The idea that one ship could threaten his massive fleet was absurd. Chen's voice continued. "Admiral Kethvar, for the record, you were warned. All actions taken from this point forward are the direct result of your aggressive stance. I sincerely hope your medical facilities are prepared for what comes next." The transmission ended. Kethvar shook his head in amazement. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Perhaps both. "Sir, the human ship is changing," Lieutenant Vextar said suddenly. "The hull is wet expanding." Kethvar looked at the main screen and felt the first flutter of uncertainty. The human ship was indeed changing. What had appeared to be smooth white hull plating was separating into sections. Beneath the outer layer, darker metal was visible. Strange patterns of light began moving across the ship's surface. "What kind of research vessel needs retractable armor?" Commander Thexra asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, Captain Chen's voice returned, now speaking directly to Admiral Kethvar. "Admiral, you have 30 seconds to order your fleet to withdraw. After that, I cannot guarantee their safety." Kethvar's pride flared. No alien species had ever threatened the Zephyrian Empire and lived to tell about it. "Fire," he commanded. "All ships open fire on the human vessel." The space around the human ship erupted in light as nearly 1,000 weapons fired simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and kinetic projectiles all converged on the small vessel. For a moment, the human ship disappeared in the brilliant flash of weapons fire. When the light faded, the Endurance hung in space completely undamaged. Not even a scorch mark marred its hull. In the sudden silence that followed, Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system one final time. Her tone was sad but determined. "You were warned." The silence on the bridge of Death's Thunder stretched for several heartbeats. Admiral Kethvar stared at the view screen, unable to process what he had just witnessed. His entire fleet had fired upon the human ship with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The vessel should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, it floated in space without even a scratch on its hull. "Report," he demanded, his voice slightly hoarse. Lieutenant Vextar worked frantically at his sensor station. "Sir, our weapons appear to have had no effect whatsoever. The human ship shows no damage, no shield depletion, nothing. It's as if our attack never happened." Commander Thexera studied her tactical display with growing concern. "Admiral, the human ship's energy signature has changed dramatically. Power levels are now reading at impossible values. Our sensors might be malfunctioning." "Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays," Kethvar ordered. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps the humans had some kind of advanced holographic technology that made their ship appear undamaged and prepare for a second attack. "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving another transmission from the human vessel." "Put it through," the Admiral said grimly. Captain Chen appeared on the screen again. Behind her, the research laboratory had changed. What had looked like simple scientific equipment now revealed itself as sophisticated control panels. Strange symbols and readouts in the human language scrolled across multiple displays. "Admiral Kethvar," she began, her voice carrying a tone of patient disappointment. "I want to make something very clear to you and your fleet. My ship detected your weapons fire. We recorded the energy signatures of 847 different weapon systems targeting us simultaneously. That was an act of war against the human species." Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. The human's calm demeanor was somehow more frightening than any threat would have been. "However," Chen continued, "humanity prefers peaceful solutions when possible. I am therefore authorized to offer your fleet one final opportunity to withdraw from this area. Leave now, and this incident will be reported as a misunderstanding. Continue your aggressive actions, and I will be forced to interpret them as a deliberate attack on human interests." The Admiral found his voice. "You speak of war, human, but you have only one ship. We have nearly 1,000. What possible threat could you pose?" Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost sad. "Admiral, I suspect you don't understand what you're dealing with. Let me explain something about human ships. What you see as one vessel is not what we see." "Elaborate," Keithvar demanded. "The Endurance is classified as a light research vessel by human standards," Chen said. "It carries a crew of 43 scientists and support staff. It is not designed for combat. However, like all human ships operating in unknown space, it carries certain defensive capabilities." On the tactical displays around the bridge, new information began appearing. The human ship was somehow broadcasting detailed scans of itself to the Zephyrian fleet. What the data showed made several officers gasp in shock. The vessel was far larger than it appeared. The outer hull was merely the tip of a massive structure that folded space around itself. Hidden within dimensional pockets were weapon systems, power generators, and defensive fields that defied Zephyrian understanding of physics. "This is impossible," Commander Thexra whispered, staring at the readouts. "No ship can carry that much firepower and still function as a research vessel." Captain Chen seemed to hear her comment through the communication link. "Commander, your technology appears to be based on principles we mastered several centuries ago. You build your ships in 3 dimensions, with linear power systems and conventional weapons. We learned long ago that such designs are inefficient." Admiral Keithvar studied the information flowing across his screens. If the human data was accurate, their single ship mounted enough firepower to level entire planets. The defensive systems alone could withstand attacks from hundreds of conventional fleets. "You're lying," he said finally. "No species could develop such technology." "I understand your skepticism," Chen replied. "But consider this. If we were lying, how did our ship survive your attack without any defensive action whatsoever? We didn't even activate our primary shields." That statement sent murmurs of concern throughout the bridge crew. If the humans had withstood their assault without using shields, what would happen when they actually defended themselves? "Sir," Lieutenant Vexitar said urgently, "long-range sensors are detecting something else. There's a massive energy buildup inside the human ship. Whatever they're preparing to do, it's big." Captain Chen glanced at something off-screen, then looked back at Admiral Keithvar. "Admiral, my science team has completed their analysis of your weapons. I have to say, we're impressed by some of your energy-focusing techniques. However, the overall technology level appears to be roughly equivalent to what humans were using about 300 years ago." 300 years? Commander Thexra said in disbelief. "Yes. The plasma cannons your heavy cruisers carry are quite similar to early human designs from the colonial expansion period. Very impressive for their time." Chen's expression grew more serious. "But Admiral, you must understand that humanity has not stood still. We have faced challenges that forced us to advance far beyond such weapons." Keithvar felt his confidence beginning to crack. "What kind of challenges?" "War, Admiral. Constant, terrible war. Not against alien species, but against ourselves. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other with ever more destructive weapons. We nearly destroyed our own world multiple times. The technology you see on this ship was developed because humans needed to defend against other humans." The implications of that statement settled over the bridge like a cold fog. If humans had been fighting each other with weapons like this for centuries, what did that say about their military capabilities? "The Endurance is not a warship," Chen continued. "It's a science vessel with defensive systems. Our actual military ships are significantly more capable." "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving emergency signals from several ships in the outer perimeter. They're reporting massive energy readings from the human vessel. Some are requesting permission to withdraw." Admiral Keithvar felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. His pride demanded that he continue the fight, but his experience told him something was very wrong. No species sent a single ship against a massive fleet unless they were absolutely certain of victory. "Captain Chen," he said slowly, "what exactly are you proposing? Withdraw your fleet to a safe distance. Allow the Endurance to complete its research mission and depart peacefully." "No one has to die today, Admiral." Keithvar looked around his bridge. His officers were watching him carefully, waiting for orders. The younger ones still showed confidence in their overwhelming numbers. The veterans looked worried. "And if we refuse?" he asked. Captain Chen's expression grew sad. "Then I will be forced to demonstrate why humans only need to send one ship." The admiral made his decision. "All ships maintain position. Prepare for combat operations." On the screen, Captain Chen closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with a look of resignation that somehow seemed more threatening than any battle cry. "Very well, Admiral. You have made your choice. What happens next is on your conscience, not mine." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar announced, "the human ship is activating something. Energy readings are off the scale." Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display as the human vessel began to change once again. This time, the transformation was far more dramatic than before. The transformation of the human ship was unlike anything the Zephyrian fleet had ever witnessed. What had appeared to be a simple research vessel began unfolding like a mechanical flower. Sections of hull plating slid apart to reveal gleaming weapons arrays beneath. The ship's length doubled, then tripled as hidden compartments extended into space. "By the ancestors," Commander Thexra whispered, watching the tactical display update in real time. "It's not one ship. It's dozens of ships connected together." Admiral Kethvar gripped the arms of his command chair as more and more weapon systems became visible on the human vessel. Massive cannon barrels emerged from concealed ports. Strange ring-shaped devices that had to be some kind of energy projectors rotated into position. Most disturbing of all, the space around the Endurance began to shimmer and bend as if reality itself was being twisted. "Sir, the energy readings are beyond our measurement capabilities," Lieutenant Vextar reported, his voice tight with fear. "Whatever power source they're using, it's generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." The Admiral forced himself to remain calm. "It's still just one ship no matter how it changes shape. All vessels attack Formation Delta. Concentrate all firepower on the human vessel's central section." Across the fleet, 847 warships moved into position. The sight should have been inspiring. The largest military force in Zephyrian history arranged in perfect battle formation. Instead, Admiral Kethvar felt a growing sense of dread as he watched the human ship complete its transformation. The Endurance was now 3 times its original size, bristling with weapons that defied understanding. Worst of all, it wasn't moving to evade or taking any defensive posture. It simply floated in space, waiting. "All ships report ready," Commander Thexra announced. "Fire!" Admiral Kethvar ordered. The second attack was even more devastating than the first. Nearly 1,000 ships unleashed everything they had at the transformed human vessel. The combined firepower was enough to crack the crust of a planet. Energy beams, plasma torrents, and kinetic projectiles filled space with deadly light. For 10 full seconds, the attack continued. When it finally ended, the space where the human ship had been was filled with a brilliant cloud of ionized particles and energy discharge. "Target destroyed," someone announced from the tactical station. Admiral Kethvar allowed himself a moment of relief. Perhaps the humans had been bluffing after all. No ship, no matter how advanced, could survive that level of concentrated firepower. Then the cloud began to clear. The Endurance hung in space exactly where it had been before, completely unharmed. More than that, it seemed to be glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed gently across its hull. "Impossible," Kethvar breathed. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar said in a shaking voice, "sensors indicate our weapons never actually reached the target. Something absorbed them. All of them." Before the Admiral could respond, space around the human ship began to change. The shimmer that had been barely visible before now spread outward like ripples on a pond. Where the distortion passed, several of the closest Zephyrian ships simply stopped. Their engines went dark, their weapons powered down, and they began drifting helplessly. "What's happening to those ships?" Commander Thexra demanded. "Unknown, sir. They're not responding to communications. All systems appear to be offline, but there's no sign of damage." Admiral Kethvar watched in growing horror as more ships were caught in the expanding field of distorted space. Whatever the humans were doing, it was disabling entire vessels without firing a shot. Then the Endurance finally returned fire. A single beam of brilliant white light lanced out from the human ship toward the Zephyrian heavy cruiser Stormbringer. The beam didn't look particularly dangerous. It was barely visible against the backdrop of space. But when it touched the cruiser's shield, something extraordinary happened. The Stormbringer's defensive barriers, strong enough to withstand the combined fire of a dozen enemy ships, simply vanished. The beam continued through the ship's armor plating as if it wasn't there. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive warship began to come apart. Not exploding, not burning, coming apart. Sections of hull plating separated cleanly from the main structure. Weapon turrets detached and drifted away. The ship's engines shut down as they were somehow disconnected from the power grid. Within 30 seconds, the Stormbringer had been reduced to a collection of separate components floating in space. Medical emergency, came a frantic transmission from one of the other ships. The Stormbringer's crew is alive. All of them. But their ship has been disassembled. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display in shock. The humans had somehow taken apart a massive warship without harming a single crew member. The precision required for such an action was beyond comprehension. A second beam lanced out from the Endurance, this time targeting the battleship Iron Fist. Again, the same impossible process occurred. The ship's weapons were carefully removed, its armor plating separated, and its engines disconnected. Within moments, another proud Zephyrian warship had been reduced to spare parts. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 ships," the communications officer reported. "They're requesting permission to withdraw." "Belay that," Kethavar snarled. "No ship retreats without my direct order." But his fleet was beginning to panic. As more vessels were systematically dismantled by the human weapon, discipline started to break down. Several ships began moving away from the battle zone without authorization. Others opened fire wildly at the Endurance, their shots having no more effect than the first coordinated attack. "Admiral," Commander Thexra said urgently, "our weapons are useless. Whatever defensive system the humans are using, it's beyond our technology. We need to consider withdrawal." "Never!" Kethvar roared. "The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat from a single enemy ship." As if responding to his defiance, the Endurance suddenly increased its rate of fire. Multiple beams lanced out simultaneously, each one targeting a different ship. The precision was terrifying. Weapons were removed without damaging crew quarters. Engines were disconnected without causing explosions, and armor was stripped away layer by layer with surgical accuracy. "Sir, the humans are broadcasting a message," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," the Admiral ordered through gritted teeth. Captain Chen appeared on the screen again. Behind her, the research laboratory had been replaced by what was clearly a military command center. Dozens of humans worked at control stations, coordinating the impossible precision of their weapons. "Admiral Kethvar," she said, her voice heavy with regret, "I want you to understand what you're seeing. My ship's defensive systems have analyzed your weapons and found them to be ineffective. Our response has been calibrated to disable your vessels while preserving the lives of your crews." "Disable?" Kethavar spat. "You're destroying my fleet." "No, Admiral. We're disarming it. Every ship we've targeted can be reassembled in a few days with the right equipment. Your crews are unharmed. This is what humans consider a minimal response." The implications of that statement hit the Admiral like a physical blow. This overwhelming demonstration of power was the humans holding back. "What you've witnessed," Chen continued, "is a single human ship operating under strict rules of engagement designed to minimize casualties. We could have simply destroyed your fleet in the first few seconds of combat, but that would have resulted in unnecessary loss of life." On the tactical display, Admiral Kethavar watched another 3 ships suffer the same fate as their predecessors. His mighty armada was being taken apart piece by piece, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Captain Chen looked directly at him through the screen. "Because, Admiral, this is what humans have learned to do to each other, and we've gotten very, very good at it." Admiral Kethavar's fleet was dying around him, not in the glorious explosions of traditional space combat, but in the methodical, terrifying precision of human technology. Ship after ship was carefully dismantled, their crews left floating in emergency pods or disabled hulks while their once mighty vessels became collections of spare parts. "Status report," he demanded, though he dreaded the answer. Commander Thexera consulted her tactical display with shaking hands. 312 ships disabled or destroyed, sir. No casualties reported among our crews but the ships themselves. They can't fight anymore. Most can't even move under their own power." The Admiral stared at the main view screen, watching as another of his battleships was delicately taken apart by the human weapons. The precision was beyond anything he had thought possible. Individual armor plates were removed without damaging the structure beneath. Weapon systems were extracted without harming the crews operating them. It was like watching a master surgeon perform an operation on a patient that fought back. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from the human vessel," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Kethvar said tiredly. Captain Chen appeared on the screen once more. This time she looked genuinely sad. Behind her, the human command center continued its work with quiet efficiency. Dozens of crew members monitored the systematic dismantling of the Zephyrian fleet, with the casual attention one might give to a routine maintenance task. "Admiral," Chen began, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what's happening here." "You're destroying my fleet," Kethvar replied flatly. "No, Admiral. I'm demonstrating why your fleet was never a threat to begin with." Chen leaned forward in her chair. "You keep thinking in terms of numbers. 800 ships against 1. It seems like an impossible disadvantage for us, but you're making a fundamental error in your calculations." "What error?" the Admiral asked, though part of him no longer wanted to know the answer. "You're assuming that one human ship equals one of your ships. That's not correct." Chen gestured to someone off-screen, and a new display appeared showing technical specifications. "The Endurance is equipped with what we call a Type 7 defensive matrix. It's a civilian-grade system, designed for exploration vessels operating in unknown space." Admiral Kethvar studied the information on his screen. The numbers made no sense. According to the human data, their single ship mounted more firepower than his entire fleet combined. The defensive systems alone could withstand attacks from thousands of conventional warships. "This is impossible," he said. "No civilization could build such weapons." "Admiral," Chen said gently, "how long has your species been fighting wars?" The question seemed strange, but Kethvar answered anyway. "The Zephyrian Empire has been the dominant military power in this region for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years of fighting other species with similar technology levels," Chen nodded. "Always external enemies. Always battles between roughly equal forces. You've had the luxury of fighting fair fights, Admiral." "What do you mean?" Captain Chen was quiet for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "Humans have been at war for over 10,000 years, Admiral. Not with alien species, but with ourselves. We spent millennia developing weapons specifically designed to kill other humans who had access to the same technology we did." The implications of that statement sent a chill through the bridge crew. Kethvar felt the blood drain from his face as he began to understand. Every advance in human defensive technology was immediately countered by advances in human offensive technology, Chen continued. "We couldn't afford to stay at the same level for centuries like your civilization has. Every generation of human weapons had to be significantly more powerful than the last, or we would have been wiped out by our own enemies." "Your own species did this to you?" Commander Thexra asked in horror. "We did this to ourselves," Chen corrected. "Humans nearly destroyed our homeworld 6 different times. We fought wars with weapons that could crack continents and poison atmospheres. We developed defensive systems that could withstand planet-killing attacks because other humans were trying to use planet-killing attacks against us." Admiral Kethvar watched another of his ships suffer the same precise dismantling as the others. The human weapon cut through advanced Zephyrian armor like it was paper, but somehow avoided damaging the crew quarters. The level of control required for such precision spoke of technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. "The weapons you're using against us," he said slowly, "they were designed to fight other humans?" "The Endurance carries civilian-grade defensive systems," Chen emphasized. "These are the weapons we put on research vessels and cargo ships to protect them from pirates and raiders. Our actual military vessels carry significantly more advanced technology." "How much more advanced?" Kethvar asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. Captain Chen consulted something off-screen before responding. "A human military vessel of similar size to the Endurance would have disabled your entire fleet in approximately 15 seconds. Without warning shots." The bridge fell silent except for the low hum of ship systems. Admiral Kethvar felt the weight of absolute defeat settling on his shoulders. Not just military defeat, but the crushing realization that his entire civilization had been living in ignorance of what real military power looked like. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because," Chen said, "humanity has learned something important from our long history of warfare. Fighting is easy. Winning is easy when you have superior technology. The hard part is what comes after. What do you do with defeated enemies? How do you build peace instead of just creating more wars? On the tactical display, Admiral Kethavar watched as the systematic dismantling of his fleet continued. Nearly half his ships were now disabled, their crews safe but their vessels reduced to component parts. The humans weren't even hurrying. They worked with the patient efficiency of gardeners pruning a hedge. "We could have destroyed your fleet in the first few seconds of combat," Chen continued. "Every ship, every crew member gone before you knew what was happening. But that would have made us the monsters we spent so many centuries learning not to be." "So what happens now?" Kethavar asked. "That depends on you, Admiral. Humanity has no interest in conquering your empire or enslaving your people. We just want to complete our research mission and return home. But we also can't allow threats to go unanswered." Commander Thexra looked up from her tactical display. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from over 400 ships. Morale is completely broken. Some captains are abandoning their vessels entirely." Admiral Kethavar closed his eyes. The greatest military force in Zephyrian history was falling apart around him. Defeated by a single ship that the enemy considered a research vessel, the humiliation was complete. "Captain Chen," he said finally, "what are your terms?" "No terms, Admiral. Withdraw your fleet, allow us to complete our mission, and we'll pretend this never happened. Your ships can be repaired. Your crews will go home to their families. The Zephyrian Empire will continue to exist. And if we refuse," Captain Chen's expression grew cold, "then I'll have to call for backup. A human military vessel is currently 3 days away from this position. If it arrives and finds us under attack, the response will be less restrained than what you've experienced so far." The Admiral looked around his bridge. His officers were watching him with expressions of fear, defeat, and dawning understanding. They had just learned that everything they thought they knew about military power was wrong. "All ships," he said into the fleet communication system, "cease fire and withdraw to minimum safe distance. This engagement is over." As his battered fleet began to pull back from the human vessel, Admiral Kethavar realized that the galaxy had just changed forever. The balance of power that had existed for millennia was gone, swept away by the revelation that true military might belong to a species that preferred to use it mercifully. The question now was what the Zephyrian Empire would do with this terrible new knowledge. The rescue operation began immediately. As Admiral Kethavar's fleet withdrew to a safe distance, the human ship Endurance transformed once again. The weapon systems that had so efficiently dismantled the Zephyrian Armada folded back into their hidden compartments. In their place, medical bays, tractor beam arrays, and sophisticated repair drones emerged from the vessel's impossible interior spaces. "Sir, the humans are helping," Commander Thexra reported in disbelief. "They're dispatching rescue craft to disabled ships and offering medical assistance to injured crew members." Admiral Kethavar watched the tactical display with a mixture of amazement and shame. The same beings who had just demonstrated the ability to destroy his entire fleet were now working to save the lives of sailors who had tried to kill them moments before. Human rescue shuttles moved between the disabled Zephyrian vessels, offering aid to crews trapped in powerless hulks. "Incoming transmission from the human ship," the communications officer announced. Captain Chen appeared on the screen again, but this time the military command center behind her had been replaced by what looked like a medical facility. Human doctors and technicians moved efficiently between treatment stations, preparing to receive casualties. "Admiral Kethavar," she said, "we're prepared to provide medical assistance to any injured crew members and temporary life support to ships that have lost power. Our engineering teams can also help with basic repairs to get your vessels mobile again." "Why?" the Admiral asked. "Why help us after what we tried to do?" Captain Chen looked tired, older somehow than she had at the beginning of the encounter. "Because that's what we've learned to do, Admiral. After 10,000 years of warfare, humanity discovered that how you treat defeated enemies determines whether you have peace or just a temporary pause before the next war." Over the next several hours, Admiral Kethavar watched the humans work. Their rescue teams moved with practiced efficiency, pulling survivors from damaged ships and providing medical care without regard for species or previous hostility. The precision that had been so terrifying when applied to combat was now being used to save lives. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the fleet," Commander Thexra said. The human medical teams have saved over 300 crew members who would have died from their injuries. Their repair crews have restored life support to dozens of ships that were completely powerless. The Admiral nodded silently. Each report made the contrast more stark. His mighty armada had been defeated in minutes, then saved by the mercy of their enemies. It was a lesson in power that would reshape everything the Zephyrian Empire thought it knew about warfare. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Imperial Command. They want a full report on the engagement." Kethvar took a deep breath. How could he possibly explain what had happened here? How could he tell the Empire that their greatest military force had been defeated by a single research vessel? That everything they thought they knew about power and warfare was wrong? "Put the transmission through to my private quarters," he ordered. "And Commander, compile a full tactical analysis of the engagement. Include everything. The human weapon capabilities, their defensive systems, and especially their restraint in victory." "Yes, sir." "What should I emphasize in the report?" Admiral Kethvar looked at the main view screen, where human rescue shuttles continued their work among the wreckage of his fleet. "Emphasize that we are no longer the strongest military force in this region of space, and that we should be grateful for that fact." 3 days later, the news had spread across the galaxy. The defeat of the Zephyrian Armada by a single human vessel became the most discussed event in recent history. Emergency sessions were called in the councils of every major spacefaring civilization. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was suddenly, dramatically changed. In the Imperial Palace on Zephyr Prime, Emperor Thaklon called an emergency meeting of his highest military advisors. The ornate war room had hosted countless strategy sessions for campaigns across the galaxy. Now it was the site of a very different kind of discussion. "Explain to me again how 800 ships lost to 1, the Emperor demanded. Admiral Kethvar, his rank insignia still intact despite the defeat, stood before the assembled council. "Your Majesty, the human vessel was not what it appeared to be. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. What we thought was a research ship was actually a combat vessel with capabilities beyond our understanding." "And this is what they consider a research ship?" asked General Mortak, head of the Imperial Ground Forces. "According to Captain Chen, yes. Their actual military vessels are significantly more advanced." A murmur of concern rippled through the council chamber. Emperor Thaklon leaned forward in his throne. "What are you recommending, Admiral?" "Immediate peace negotiations, Your Majesty. Not just with the humans, but a complete revision of our military doctrine. The age of Zephyrian dominance through force is over." "You're suggesting we surrender to aliens we've never even met before?" General Mortak protested. "I'm suggesting we adapt to a new reality," Kethvar replied firmly. "The humans have demonstrated they could destroy us any time they choose. The fact that they haven't shows remarkable restraint. We should be building bridges, not preparing for wars we cannot win." Emperor Thakalon was quiet for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "Draft a formal communication to the human government. Inform them that the Zephyrian Empire wishes to establish diplomatic relations and discuss trade agreements." "Your Majesty," Admiral Kethvar added, "there's something else. The humans offered to share some of their basic technology with us. Medical advances, power generation systems, even some defensive technologies. They said it was goodwill." The impact of this statement was immediate. Around the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in the capitals of every major civilization. The humans had revealed themselves as the dominant military power in known space, then immediately offered to share their advantages with potential enemies. Within weeks, the first human diplomatic missions arrived at alien worlds. The diplomats came not in warships, but in the same unassuming research vessels that had proven so deceptive. Each ship carried gifts: medical technologies that could extend lifespans, power sources that dwarfed anything alien civilizations had developed, and most importantly, the promise of protection. The message was clear without being explicitly stated. Humanity would protect its new allies from anyone foolish enough to threaten them. "The galaxy has changed," Admiral Kethvar observed to Commander Thexra as they watched a human diplomatic vessel dock at Zephyr Prime's orbital station. "For the first time in our history, we're not the strongest species in space. Is that necessarily a bad thing, sir?" Thexra asked. The Admiral considered the question. The human rescue teams had saved the lives of hundreds of his crew members. Their medical technology was already treating injuries that Zephyrian doctors couldn't heal. Their power systems were providing energy to colonies that had struggled with shortages for decades. "No," he said finally. "I don't think it is." Across the galaxy, the question that had started it all, why are the humans just one ship against us, had found its answer. They only needed one ship because one ship was enough. And perhaps more importantly, because they chose to use their overwhelming power not for conquest, but for the far more difficult task of building peace. The age of human dominance had begun. But it was unlike any empire the galaxy had ever seen. It was an empire built not on fear and subjugation, but on the radical idea that true strength came from knowing when not to use your power. And for the first time in millennia, the galaxy knew peace.